There's a question that most people don't ask out loud, but carry quietly through the later years. Not, "What have I done?" That question has a visible answer in the record of what has happened. But something harder, what will remain? What, of everything I've poured into this life, will still be here when I'm not? Sammy Davis Jr. spent 50 years performing at a level of total commitment that left audiences stunned and his colleagues exhausted just from watching. He could sing, dance, act, do impressions, play multiple instruments, and could do all of it simultaneously, in combinations that shouldn't have worked, and worked completely. He was, in the fullest sense of the word, a performer, someone who was most alive in the act of giving an audience everything he had. And he did it, night after night, across a career that spanned from the 1940s through the 1980s, with an energy that seemed to have no natural ceiling. The applause he received was real and enormous. He was beloved by audiences, by colleagues, by a world that recognized in him something rare, a person whose joy in what they were doing was so complete and so genuine that it couldn't be separated from the thing itself. When Sammy Davis Jr. was on stage, the pleasure he was taking in the performance was visible. And it was contagious. People left his shows feeling more alive than when they arrived, more in contact with something about what a human being could do when they were operating at full capacity. That was the gift he gave. But in his later years, in the conversations he had when the performing was winding down, and the question of legacy was closer than it had been, he spoke with increasing directness about what he hoped would outlast the applause. And what he named was not the recordings, not the films, not the residue of the performances in any formal sense. He named people, specific people, whose lives had been different because of something he had done, or said, or demonstrated. Younger performers he had encouraged and supported when the industry was not always inclined to do so. People who had faced the particular combination of challenges he had faced, as a black artist in an industry and country that imposed real limits on black artists, as a Jewish convert in a world that was not always welcoming of either identity, and who had found, in watching how he navigated those challenges, something that helped them navigate their own. He talked about wanting the world he had fought for, not just through his art, but through his choices, his refusals, his insistence on dignity in situations that had tried to deny it, to be a world that was a little more possible for the people who came after. Not as a grand political statement, though he had made those, but in the personal, particular way, one person at a time, one opened door, one maintained relationship, one moment of making someone feel that what they had in them was real and worth bringing forward. That was the legacy he most cared about. Not the statistics of his achievement, not the awards, not the chart positions, not the box office numbers. The people, and what they had carried forward from knowing him. Maybe you've thought about this kind of legacy. Maybe there are people in your own life, not necessarily many, but specific ones, who are different in some way because of their time with you, who carry something forward that they received from you, a perspective, an encouragement, a way of approaching something difficult that they wouldn't have found on their own, who were, at some point in their lives, given something by your presence that they then built on in their own. Most of us underestimate how far this kind of influence travels. We can see the formal outputs of our lives, the work, the relationships, the choices we made with their immediate effects. But we can't usually see what someone did with something we gave them in the years after we gave it. The way the perspective traveled, the way the encouragement became a building block for something we never saw, the way a single conversation at the right moment became part of how someone understood what was possible for them. These invisible effects are real, and they are, almost certainly, more numerous than you can easily account for. Because influence, like water, follows paths you don't always see, through people, and then through the people those people influenced, in ways that extend far beyond any single relationship. The legacy you're building isn't only in the people you can name. It's in everything they're building and everything they will build. That's both humbling and comforting. Humbling because it means that how you treat people, all the people, including the ones who seem peripheral, including the encounters that feel too small to matter, is part of what you're leaving. And comforting, because it means that the legacy is probably larger and more durable than you know. That things you've offered, in moments you've mostly forgotten, are still moving in the world. Sammy Davis Jr. wanted to have mattered, not just to the industry, not just to audiences, but to people. To the performers who came after him, who found the path a little clearer because of what he had done. To the friends he had supported through their own difficult seasons. To whoever he had reached, in whatever way, that had made some small difference in how they moved through their lives. That was the legacy he cared about, and he seems, by most accounts, to have genuinely built it. You're building yours right now. Not in grand strokes. Most of it is happening in the texture of ordinary interactions, in small choices about how to treat people, in moments that seem minor and that turn out not to be. Maybe this week is a good week to be a little more deliberate about it. To ask, when you're in a conversation with someone who matters to you, what could I give them right now that they could carry forward? Not a grand lesson, not a formal mentorship, just a moment of genuine attention or honest encouragement, or the particular kind of seeing that says, I notice what you have, and I think it's real. That's the kind of legacy Sammy Davis Jr. hoped would outlast the applause. The personal, particular, person-by-person kind. The kind that doesn't require an audience. The kind that travels quietly, from one person to another, in ways that are invisible from the outside, but completely real on the inside. So take a slow breath, and maybe, this week, give something to someone that they can carry forward. Not a performance, just the genuine gift of being truly seen, truly heard, truly believed in, by someone who chose to pay attention. That's the legacy that outlasts everything else. It always has. There's one more aspect of legacy worth sitting with. Something about what it means to receive a legacy, not only to leave one. Because most of us are the beneficiaries of someone's legacy, even as we're in the process of building our own. We're carrying something forward that someone gave us. And the chain that goes behind us, the people who shaped us, who opened doors for us, who fought for things that made our lives more possible, is worth honoring explicitly, not just carrying unconsciously. Sammy Davis Jr. knew what doors had been opened for him, and by whom. He was explicit and publicly grateful about the performers who had come before, about the black artists who had fought for their dignity and their space in a world that was not always willing to give it, and who had made it a little more possible for him to step into larger rooms than would otherwise have been available. He understood his own success as part of a chain, not only his achievement, but the accumulated achievement of everyone who had come before and made the ground a little firmer under his feet. Maybe you carry something like that, too. Not always visibly, not always in a form that's easy to name, but somewhere in your capacity to do what you do, in your access to education or opportunity, or the simple assumption that certain things were possible for you, someone's work is present. Someone who fought for something, or built something, or refused to accept a limit that would have constrained you, and who may not have known your name, but who made your life more possible nonetheless. Honoring that, naming it, even privately, to yourself, changes the feel of what you've built. It takes your achievements out of the isolation of pure individual credit and places them in a chain where they belong, where they are both more humble and more meaningful. Not yours alone, built on what others gave you, and not ending with you, feeding into what comes next. Sammy Davis Jr. understood himself as part of something larger than his own career. He was both a beneficiary of what had come before and a contributor to what would come after. And that understanding, that he was a link in a chain rather than a self-contained thing, seemed, in the accounts of those who knew him, to give him a particular kind of peace about his own legacy. Not the anxious need for it to be large enough, just the quieter sense of, I received something. I gave something. The chain continues. That's enough. Sammy Davis Jr. gave the world 50 years of total, joyful, magnificent performance. And what he hoped would outlast all of it was simpler and smaller and more durable than any of it. The people. What they carried forward. What they built with whatever he'd been able to give. And the world a little more possible for whoever came after. That's the legacy available to you, too. You're already building it. In every genuine act of attention, in every door you hold open, literally or otherwise, in every person you see clearly enough to encourage before they've given you a reason to. That's the chain continuing. And it matters. More than you'll ever quite know. So take a slow breath. And maybe, this week, give something to someone that they can carry forward. And thank, quietly, someone who gave something to you. That's the whole of what Sammy Davis Jr. hoped would outlast the applause. And it's available to you, in some form, today.